I just wanted to unpack them in a video. I tried to make this video earlier today. My phone kept overheating, and so it became kind of almost impossible to record. I think it overheated 3 or 4 times actually. It's been bothering me all day. Not because what he said felt true. It was because what was said to me in the confessional was dismissive of my reality and my experience and my perception. And that's the clinical term. It's a manipulative tactic to make a person question their own sanity, really. And so to have my life, just a small little snapshot of that, sharing it with this man for all of 1 minute, tells me he is not a safe place to go to talk to about deeper matters at all. This is not a person that would have the capacity to hear about those 10 years that I tried to just simply summarize for him to contextualize the confession I was about to give him, which is a very kind of plain Jane confession. It also, here's the other damaging fallout of this kind of thing, where a priest hears a little bit of your story, it doesn't fit into their worldview, or sadly because they've not been trained well in seminary, or because they're unfamiliar with the topic of the demonic and the devil. Maybe they don't even believe in such things. We have a lot of priests in the Catholic stable these days who do not believe in such things at all. They feel like they've become more enlightened and have moved beyond these archaic ways of viewing things, and they also have sort of become bedfellows. The church in large part has done this. Bedfellows with the disciplines that we've been talking about, where once you're gaslit by the person, then they want to send you to a mental health professional, because they don't understand from their perspective. They've never had any of this happen to them. I'll be the first to admit, I'm the first to admit to anyone that my life experience, while not unheard of or not experienced by others ever, is very unique. It doesn't lend itself well to understanding. That's probably one of the most isolating or lonely parts of having to go through it all, actually, is realizing that this, really, for lack of a better way of putting it, this supernatural journey that God has taken you on, most people never go on it. Most people never get put through all this. Mostly because, if I can unpack that real quick, mostly because I think that people are largely trying to avoid that sort of life. The life that we're presented to aspire towards, especially here in the United States, is one where we're looking to be comfortable, to make a bunch of money, to live in a big home, to get a nice car. We're told to consume all the time. I mean, that's the implied reality of just driving down any commercial strip in the United States where the town has, it's their business district. It's like you throughout the country, all you see are homes or businesses where you are to consume things, buy things, aspire. And if you don't have enough money, well, maybe you're not allowed to have that thing, or you have to work all the harder just to get that little thing that's not going to bring you any more happiness. I do realize I'm becoming more disillusioned with it all. I suppose that's been an ongoing process. I was telling a friend today, I said, as much as I find a lot of joy helping the homeless and serving the poor. I find a great joy in doing that. But when I'm out here at the shed, I sometimes feel when it comes time for Monday, I don't want to leave. And it has nothing to do with, I just want to sit around and whatever. It's just, I'm getting to this place where I feel like I want to just seek the Lord and only the Lord. And I'm starting to wonder if that means that I might need to be cloistered at some point. I just find it, because I'm torn between that, because most of the advice that I'm handing out, in addition to the food at the stand and the prayer, has to do with this pressure or the lament of others about this very way of life that they're trying to fit into as well. It's exhausting. This way of, when I say this, I'm looking, just so you know, in context, at a concrete jungle of businesses right now. This is it. This is all there is to life. Now, I know that you and I both know that the answer to that is no, that is not all there is. But to the average person, that's kind of all that's offered. God bless anybody who's joining, by the way. Let me see. I just got on the live stream. What are you talking about? Many times Jesus went off by himself to talk to his Father. So there's nothing wrong with being by yourself. Sometimes you'll hear from the Holy Spirit much clearer that way. I love it, actually. You're right, and the only challenge to sometimes staying at, I call it the hermitage sometimes. The only challenge to staying at the shed is sometimes to deal with the issue of sloth or of not being active enough. And so I feel like whatever place I have eventually in the church, I need to have a little bit of both. I need to have that time for just communion with God, and then that service time. And I'm torn whether or not actually I should be more down in Covington 7 days a week and no days a week out here even. I'm maybe just once in a while coming out here, because I find that some of the most beautiful interactions that I have with the Lord come from that stand that I run in Madison. Meaning some of the prophetic conversations that I'll have with individuals, even sometimes the friction sent my way when the enemy shows up, because he does. He shows up. I tried to talk about it with the priest on Saturday in confession, and realized, that's the sad takeaway that I had from it all. And it's not just that priest. The sad takeaway I had was, am I safe in my Catholic Church to talk about my real life experiences without having it dismissed by people who have never had to live such a life or to walk even a mile in these shoes? And I think what I'm getting is, I think the answer I'm getting back is, you share it and you learn in real time, Adam, who has the capacity and who doesn't. And even too, Adam, you have to have thick enough skin to realize that even when they don't, maybe you keep going. Because I just, what upset me the most about it, and it's just been bothering me ever since it happened. I had a horrible night of sleep last night. And it again was not because I felt like what he said was valid. it was actually the opposite. It's because I feel like what he said was so invalid and so inappropriate that it upsets me that people who are going through some of the darkest times in their life where they're going to you, a priest. They're bringing you their life experience through the lens of the spiritual life. And you're removing that and saying, go to the mundane mental health life. Go that route. And to me, as much as that my world or even my church, unfortunately, has become unfortunate bedfellows with this discipline, no matter what you call it, that is classic gaslighting. I'm coming to you with my life experience. This is the life I'm living. These are the things that I go through. And simply because I do not fit into the box of which you understand life to operate, that's your only response. And it goes back to what we were talking about yesterday. If you watched the video, I'm upset for all the people that go and have this happen to them. I have not, if I'm being honest with you all, I have not had a terribly high amount of good interactions with Catholic priests over the last couple of years. I've had a lot of painful experiences. I've had a lot of, because I'm trying to fit in. I don't fit in to the average, this is what a parishioner should be and look like. I don't have the big successful job. I don't have the wife and kids. I don't live out in the suburbs. I don't spend all of our church time in the back of the ape of the church talking about nothing. Talking about nothing, socializing about nothing. In fact, when I do talk, it's like this. And I think it, sadly enough, even within the confines of the church, they can't deal with it. They don't want to talk about this. I feel like so many people want to go anywhere but towards God in conversation, but towards those things that mean things. I find it throughout my life, in all areas, even with some of the best of friends that I have, some of the stronger Catholics that I know, can't throw down as long, because there's never really a time where I want to go off and say, let's talk about nothing. Let's talk about nothing for a while. I can do it. For me, it's like, let's do that in real small portions. Tell me about, this thing that happened with your friend, or, tell me about like your social life for a very small amount of time. And then let's get into talking about what matters and what is essential, and that's going to actually help us grow as people. And I find when that's your disposition and that's the way you like, that's where you're comfortable in, you might as well just be an alien throughout the world. Because I don't find people that want to do that. I find people that are running from such conversations. When this journey began out at my local parish, I would sometimes ask people if they wanted to come down. They felt like they wouldn't know what to do because they don't have a testimony. How would I lead anyone anywhere? I don't really have any powerful testimony. What are you doing? Are you going to church in your sleep? You just showing up every week? Why? Have you ever look in the mirror and think about it or ask about it? From my perspective, based on what I can see what the church teaches, when we finally do get to heaven, which is hopefully all of our final destinations, there's no I'm only speculating here. I can't imagine in heaven there's any empty, vain, stupid talk about anything other than the glory of God. And because that's the source of all of our joy. Why do we ever go away from that? Why would we ever be running from that being the center of why we come together? I suppose what I'm lamenting is just life. Life, fallen man life. Where most people, and this isn't me tooting my horn, please don't hear me say it like that. Where simply put, though, most people aren't there. Which adds further to the sense of, I feel like an absolute alien. Among brethren a lot of times. Some of the strongest brethren I know. It's extremely exhausting to have to own the testimony that I'm getting put in my lap. And I'm starting to learn very clearly that if God is putting me in the church, it is not going to be a fun ride. I'll have my highs, I'll have my vistas, I'll have my closeness with the Lord, but I'm going to begin for a battle with know-it-alls that think that they've figured it all out already. In that they confuse magisterium with dogmas. And these things, especially this current, last 40 years maybe, of going to therapists rather than having the priest answer the questions as to whether what we're dealing with is something spiritual. Now it's like we go to mental health professionals to figure it out. It's not a done deal, brothers and sisters. As a matter of fact, I would argue, I think that the exhibit demonstrates that we are failing as a church, as a society, at handling this topic of oftentimes what is a spiritual malady that is being misdiagnosed as something mentally improper, mentally ill would be the way to put it. I'm telling you, America does not seem to be producing any mystics. Would that be a fair assessment? Is the Catholic Church really producing many mystics at all anymore? And if your answer, when you're thinking about it and saying in the modern day, does the church like to get behind people who have these supernatural experiences that they can't quite explain? The answer is mostly no. We don't like to stand behind that. Makes the church actually quite uncomfortable, because they want to. I feel like my modern church wants to conform worldview perspective that many hold. And that is where, almost like a more Protestant view, where the supernatural God that acts in our lives, the burning bushes, these different things, none of that's real. None of that's real. None of this happens. We've figured it all out. We put God in a box, and here he is. God's in this box now. Nothing else, nothing can happen outside of that box. The saints that I most find my story in, I don't see my church producing anymore. Are they not being produced? Is my question. These are honest questions I have. Is it that they're no longer in the world, or is it that they are falling through the cracks in our modern approach towards what we view the life of someone who is walking with the Lord should look like? And are therefore, based on the modern approach that the church takes, are they being sent to therapists? I would argue that most would be being sent to therapists. As much as my church lionizes, the Catholic Church lionizes the great saints of old, I think I'm preaching to the choir. I think most people who are honest with themselves would know that in 2026 United States of America, they would be getting diagnosed with all kinds of mental health issues instead. We seem to be getting run largely by I'm never going to have a good bump-free ride through the church, I'll tell you. But many of the higher-ups seem to be almost like bureaucrats or politicians, like just absolutely divorced from the spiritual dimension. We pay it lip service. The Catholic Church pays it lip service. We buy book after book after book to do little spiritual retreats to learn about, because our life is so alien to the life we read of the saints. And then when someone whose life presents in that way to us, we automatically call it weird and want it to go away. I've looked at this long enough. I think the reason why people want to dismiss my testimony is because it's just too weird. If it's real, then that changes too much. That's too much. So therefore it can't be real. Even though when we talk to Adam, he sounds reasonable. He sounds very intelligent. He tells us these life experiences he goes through, and they're consistent. He's constantly telling us he can pull things back from years ago, and it's always the same as what he was saying back then. There's this, how is that hallucinatory? Also, how does it lead to the development of a soul, to the advancement of a soul? Why am I growing deeper? If I'm mentally ill, why am I growing deeper in my walk with the Lord as a result? I mean, I would offer, ever since I became mentally ill, what was I doing like 2 years ago? 2 years ago, people were happy with where I was at. Adam's running a record store. He's doing the thing that we all got to do to make money, and he's being practical. Even though that flea market caused me so much anxiety and also such spiritual torment. Number one, because you guys knew that I knew very well what a lot of the symbolism on the band t-shirts that I was selling and a lot of the records that I was selling. I knew pretty much everything about what I was selling to people, and that was tearing at me. And also at the same time, I never was able to make enough. It didn't matter how hard I hustled. It didn't matter how much I did. I was constantly overhanging me was this anxiety of being actually exactly where I am today, which is homeless. So homelessness was my big fear. And so society would have called that normal. That wouldn't cause any red flags. With most priests would just be like, oh yeah, it's just a normal. He's got his 9 to 5. He's selling records. Okay, all's fine and dandy. But then if I say, oh, and then in 2024, when I'm running that business, this demonic stalking starts happening again. And I am forced during that week through a series of very strange supernatural events to do a full-on prayer of repentance, and then I go back that next weekend. I give away everything and I start to help the poor. Suddenly now, to many, sadly, to people in my church, I don't think that they don't know what that is. Then I end up what? 6 months later, 7 months later in Covington, Kentucky, in circumstances that I don't even fully understand, sitting across from the Cathedral Basilica of the Assumption, and I've been there ever since in Covington, Kentucky. And friction there with the priest who would see me every day, and I think they thought, and I'm right, I had no idea where I was setting up. I didn't do any research. All I did was I looked up Fountain Square of Kentucky. That's all I did, because I knew I had to stay away from Fountain Square, which, by the way, has like, if you ever look at Fountain Square in Cincinnati, it looks like the Blessed Virgin on the top, actually, oddly enough, like a depiction of the Madonna. And so I looked that up, and it says St. Mary's Park, Covington, Kentucky. And so I didn't even realize where I was going. St. Mary's Park was like attached to the Diocese of Covington, let alone across the street from this massive basilica, which is a papal cathedral, in devotion to the Blessed Virgin at the time. And as much as he tried to play kind with me at times at first, he never knew what to do with me. He'd never seen anything like it. You know? Clearly, according to my Catholic Church, this is a sign of someone unstable. And yet they pay what I'm doing lip service during homilies every Sunday of the year throughout my church. They allegedly are trying to activate people. What are they talking about on Sunday when they say, let the dead bury the dead and follow me? Or when Jesus is saying to the rich man, sell everything, give it to the needy and poor, follow me. Well, it turns out that in America especially, if you take them up on that offer, if you do what you're actually being called to do, and especially if there's no place within the church that is going to take you in, because that's what's happening a lot too. There's not a vocational crisis. There's a rejection of the vocationally called crisis happening in the Catholic Church. Let's not get it twisted. It's not the other way around. I know there's a man that I know, there's a good friend of mine. When I say good friend, a Catholic who is always very helpful, who, if I needed to, I could talk to him. He has a family today. He's a very educated Catholic educator. But when he was a younger man, before he got married, he thought he might want to be a priest. He felt like he was being called to be a priest. And they sent him to the vocational director sent him to, just like they want to send me to as well, because everybody has to get checked, to a psychiatrist who told him afterwards that he's schizophrenic. He might be possibly schizophrenic. And he was rejected. Years later, my friend found out that that particular psychiatrist was a Freemason. And he went back to the vocational director to tell him that. This was, I think, after he had gotten married, and he was no longer going to pursue that avenue, but he did want to tell this person. And the vocational director answered and said, that's why every candidate that I sent was rejected. He sent something like 20 men to this psychiatrist who rejected them all. Now, I know this man very well. He would be a better priest than most priests I've ever met. Talk about a man. Like, he'll do anything for you. He'll do anything for you. He has time, even with his big family, to be there for people. He would have been an excellent priest. And the question then becomes, what qualifications does a secular psychiatrist have in determining who is or is not qualified to be a priest or to be vocationally called at all? I would argue that when the church abrogates her responsibility to discern such things themselves, that you are handing, and many people don't have spiritual eyes like this, you are handing that discernment over potentially to the enemy, who is going to do the exact opposite of what you are hoping for them to do, rather than to put through a candidate who checks all the right boxes. You're going to put through the candidates who actually don't have the experiences of the spiritual life. You're certainly not going to be a mystic that makes their way through if they're honest. Not one. Not today. Not as things currently are. No. So we're going to quit. Until this thing is fixed, my church is not going to be producing any more mystics. It's not. Everything's going to be very rational. Have you noticed this movement towards that? I think what I'm doing is I'm joining in the choir of people who are decrying modernism and saying, why are we giving such deference to disciplines that aren't even, again, let's say you have a priest not trained in mental health, they've not taken any psychology, and yet they have a lot of life experience of warring with the devil, with spiritual warfare, things like this. And that's their worldview. So fair enough, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, their worldview is going to be completely different. That's their own worldview. But a priest is supposed to have their own worldview. And that discipline, if I may, as much as we want to argue that it's so frustrating, man, that there may be some truth in some of these disciplines, largely speaking, it's a secular approach to understanding the same thing that we're understanding as the church. And rather than having more skepticism towards a discipline that has no religious dimension to it, no, let alone any, show me a therapist who in their textbooks studied the diabolical, studied the testimonies of those who have been demonically afflicted. You're not going to find, they're going to be few and far between. Few and far between. Generally, they're there to put you down as a diagnosis on a clipboard. There's not a vocational crisis. There's a vocational crisis, and it's because we have changed the vetting process. When I say these things, people often in the Catholic Church fire back with no, this is why there's a vocational crisis. This is just dismissing absolutely what I'm saying. Here I am, someone being in a burning way called into the church and constantly held outside. It doesn't matter how much I activate. It doesn't matter how many days I wake up in my van in a hot, wet going to go get the food for the day. That's my day. It's gonna get darker here during this winter. This will be the first winter, unless somehow I go to jail again. God only knows that. This will be the first winter where I actually have to spend much of it in my van on really cold, freezing nights. And I'm gonna commit to what other option do I have? What do I do? I go back and I say, you know what, none of this is happening. I'm gonna take this father's advice. None of it's real. It's all just a fleeting dream. You know? 10 years of just somehow it's deepened my faith in my spiritual life immensely. But it's just been all just like a fog and a cloud. None of it ever happened. Just go back to sleep, go get a 9 to 5, pay your bills, live in an apartment, see God at night there. Turn your back on where you know he's trying to call you or where he is calling you, and you just have to. My job is to hold on and to just trust that he's taken me somewhere in all this. It's probably going to be painful. It's probably always going to be painful. Kind of like when I had the insight. Where was I? I'm working so hard. I don't know if I ever shared this with you. So as many of you know, is I'm aiming very much to feeling called into the deacon into the Catholic Church. Mostly, a large part of that is because it has really almost been prophesied into my life countless times since this journey began. That's almost why it began. When I was at the last banquet that I was at, Catholic, it was a pro-life banquet, I ran into the person who mysteriously had made sure that I was there at the 25th anniversary banquet of Sacred Heart Radio in Cincinnati. Total stranger. I've never met this woman. Her husband's a deacon. He's there at the table with us. He wasn't there this last banquet. But she just says very casually, and she writes down, she says, "Oh, you want to be a deacon? I could make that happen." And she said, she wrote down a number of a priest to contact in Florida. And you know I haven't called. Because here it is, it's like it's scary to me now. It's like, what if, maybe, number one, what if that isn't it? But what if that's it? What if it's all this, and there it is, it's just sitting there waiting for me to call. And meanwhile, I've been saying these prayers where I very much would love to have a wife. Realizing that that's part of probably the hesitation. It's like, well, I'm still hoping to see, can I get married before I enter the diaconate? Would that be nice? Because if I were to go do that, you have to enter married already. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of explaining to you guys. So this disillusionment too that I'm going through consistently with the world. I just think I'd ever comfortably fit back into it. Not that I'm not of it. I mean, I'm not any different, or I've just come to a different place in my life at this time where I look at what is being offered as being a counterfeit to what life could be, which to me, my time would be better spent in poverty seeking God than in wealth having less time to seek God. And I'm starting to say, maybe I'll never have that other life. The other part of me is saying, is that even real? Is that card even real? Would it be that simple? So there's this thing, like I'm sitting there, I have this card with this number to call down in Florida. Something attached to, it's like a town founded by the owner of Domino's. Giant, like, Catholic town. And I haven't called. I sometimes get called priest a lot, too. The last person to call me a priest was this last week, actually. It's a young boy, I think he's about 10 years old. His name's Gieso, and he walks by my stand and goes down to play soccer down the street. And I see him all the time. He's this kid who every once in a while he'll come up with $1. He'll come up, donate $1. Sometimes maybe he'll get like a water. He generally doesn't get any food though, or anything like that. He just has these, he blesses and he gives sometimes words of encouragement. And he said something about me this last week. Smiling, I'm just walking off. That has been, that title was used right after I had given everything away in 2024. I went to church that next weekend. As I left the church, I'm walking up to these two gentlemen to introduce myself who are sitting there off to the side, and they both turn around and they say, "Are you a priest?" Nope. Maybe it was because I was wearing this at the time too. I don't know. The terms have been used quite a lot. Quite a lot. Both of them seem to be, my fear, it's not even fear, it's like if and when these things happen, I'm scared. You guys may be watching out there tonight saying, all this sounds like a pipe dream. Let's see. Let me read the chat here for a moment. Somebody said, and I don't know what this was in reference to, you honestly think that a priest is going to give you an honest answer. There's still just a man in a black suit with the title, but you got God who knows you inside and out and knows exactly what you need. I think you're assuming that I think certain things about priests or ascribe things other than them being a man. However, you village varies. Not sure if this is disconnecting or not. So my counter to that is, as tempting as it is for me to just say, well, I just have my relationship with God, I don't need anybody else. That's real arrogant. It's also, you have zero guardrails. That's how every heretic in history has taken that route. That says, you know what, this thing that I'm a part of, it's no good, and I'm gonna go do my own thing, and I'm gonna start my own church, or I'm just gonna find God the way I feel like finding God, and all of this, and I just find that to be the road to deception. Because, as somebody else said there, he said, you need to be around good people. Iron sharpens iron. Hopefully that person was responding back to you. If not, that was a very interesting timing that they put that down there. You need other people outside of just what you feel God is leading you to. Because oftentimes, I'm not the only one that can testify to this. My own personal testimony is that often God speaks to me through other people. Sometimes in ways where it's like you just keep hearing this theme over and over and over again. And you start to realize God's trying to draw my attention to something here. He's trying to point out something here. So, do I think that the priest is some magical man or anything other than just a man? I said, no, I don't. I don't think that at all. I do think your mileage varies greatly. So there are men who are priests who are less and more spiritually advanced than I am out there, who have more or less life or experience with navigating the walk with God than I do. It's just, it is what it is, you know. I think that the reason why, I didn't have this experience yesterday with that priest and saying, I'm done, I'm throwing it all away. I didn't have the friction that I had with the priest down at the Cathedral Basilica and going through having to be put for a month in Kenton County Jail for a trespass that never even happened, for a failure to appear for a citation for trespassing when I did anything wrong to begin with. That's the context. Like, if doing wrong was asking questions about why a homeless man had been removed from the church or was being rejected from going into the church, well, then I suppose I'm guilty. Or for even questioning the wisdom, which is exactly what I did, as to the rule that we have in place. If that's some kind of great sin that merits that, fine. But I didn't give up then. I'm not giving up now. But that's because I don't look to these men as gurus, right? If anything, what God is showing me, there's a little bit of truth to what you're saying. What he's showing me is that something needs to be fixed in the church. It's not that we focus so much on the certain kinds of abuses of priests over time. We're totally not looking at some of these other areas of problem. And we do need to be praying for our priests all the time, but like, I don't know how it's this difficult. Other than, I feel like what we see in the church today, when we see priests failing, we're seeing the smoke of Satan in the church. And that's wherever it is. And that it's their own humanity, it's things, sometimes it literally is. There's not everyone who goes into the Catholic priesthood means well. Not everyone has a tremendous wealth of compassion or empathy for others who enters it. Some just want the role, just want to be looked up to and seen as important. It happens, it's there. Not everyone who's in the priesthood, obviously, is there for the right reasons. So, long way of me saying, I don't put them on pedestals. I don't. The only pedestal that I hold a priest on is that they can perform all the 7 sacraments. That's honestly, I've gotten to that point. Because I have, sadly, in my walk in the Catholic Church, have seen many priests who say things that are not in alignment with church teachings. Like the priest that said that he doesn't believe, that he believes that the devil is a psychological construct. Priests like this one that doesn't seem to have, within a minute, he knows me and has no capacity to even have any kind of follow-up questions about what I just claimed about my encounters with the demonic. No, nothing. These to me are grave shortcomings. And if you didn't know what you were, if you weren't of the disposition that I'm at, like I'm Catholic despite all of this, many people just would swallow up what they say because they do trust them. I went down that avenue 3 times, the mental health answer. Never once found the answer there. Never once. I would humor family. I'd take the olanzapine. I'd go through these periods where I said, you know what? Maybe I am bipolar. Maybe that's all it is. Basically, just to make everybody else happy. Never feeling like their pressure was valid or true. But just to simply not hear it. Because they didn't, like the experiences that I had with my father leading up to all this. For example, I was staying with my parents late in life. I mean, into my 40s. And I would come and I'd try to talk to him about these spiritual matters. My father had been through seminary, Catholic seminary. He met my mother. He left the seminary and they married and they adopted children. My dad, in many ways, is a very wonderful man. I still don't understand what happened. Not really. Not when I really unpack it, other than to say this is some sort of divine hole that I've fallen into, essentially, where it had to happen. But there was never a capacity. It was like if I wanted to talk about spiritual matters, oh, you're interrupting my television program. And he'd turn it off and he'd humor it once again. But he never once humored it. This is my experience of many people. I'm not bashing my dad. It's just many people, they don't want to hear it or understand it. It's too... My dad admitted it at different times. I would show him some of the videos that I used to make on the Jeremiah Cohen channel. He would tell me feedback-wise afterwards, it scared him, and he doesn't want to look at that. I think that's what I'm dealing with, the Voldemort effect. I think that what I'm seeing in the Catholic Church is this tendency, I think it is post-Vatican II as well, to not overemphasize, but to emphasize God to the exclusion of the adversary that we are at war with. You know, as if you can present God and your walk in relationship with him without mentioning the fact that there's an adversary that is there to rob you of your salvation and your walk with the Lord. As if you can have both. Let me read a little more. Adam, let me help you get set up on SSI so you can generate your own income. Winter is coming soon. You can't live in your van. I'll do whatever God leads me to. God doesn't lead me to... number one, as far as I know, I don't even know who you are. So I certainly don't trust... Brother, I've been so tested. I'm sorry. I don't know you. I don't have any personal relationship with you of any kind. I only, oddly enough, trust the Lord to put me in the right places. So, I've been through hard times enough already. I'll do it again. I'll do it again. I had to spend all of last winter denied her right to trial because of, you know, it's the theme of my life. No one can allow me to have my life experience. My life experience is not allowed to be valid. These things can't be happening, therefore you're mentally ill. That's basically what it is. And I was denied a right to trial. Also, I spent all of winter in there. For a month, I was in a cell that was filled with black mold, and no matter how often I would complain about it, none of the guards gave even the slightest of craps about it. And the place would flood several times a week, to where there'd be guys, you know, if I was in a cell where I was there for a little while, at least I'm up and elevated. Some of these guys would be on there. There were several nights that would be on the floor with their mattress. Several nights when the facility would flood, men would have to put their beds on top of my bed, and they would sit on one end, I'd sit on another. And for the next 3 hours or 4 hours, we'd sit there and people would hand mops under our doors for us to mop up our cell. And then they'd throw their bed back on the ground and try to go to sleep. Well, don't go to jail. Well, brother, I wasn't trying. I was trying to visit my mother in hospice, who I never did get to see. She's dead now. Never got to see my mother. I got to see my... All right, I'm going off on a tangent. I'm just saying I'm willing to... I know that when God's not providing a clear answer for anything, I just prepare for the fact that I may be going into another dark season. And in these dark seasons, I tend to grow the most. So I'm willing to. I've never had to. It's a hardship I've never had to face. I'm not really. If a door opens to where I don't have to spend all of winter in this van, which will be brutal, good. Otherwise, what do the homeless directly on the street have to do? They've got to grit their teeth and go through it. I feel like everything that I go through is all for preparation for when I get to just start slamming the dysfunction. I pray. Because a lot of these people, man, the church I went to today, God love them, it was just a sea of well-bathed white people in nice outfits in a very wealthy church. I looked throughout the entire crowd. I couldn't find one person of color, not even an Asian, not even any. It was just all white, middle, mostly upper class people. They don't know what the hell this is. They just drop a little bit of money into St. Vincent de Paul and they think they solved it. They actually look down upon people that choose to go a different direction. Am I looking forward to this winter? No, I'm not. I'm not. There's a lot of obstacles right now. Tomorrow, again, in the description to this video, if you are so kind to donate anything, it would be great. Tomorrow, I'm starting out with the $6 that I have in my pocket in cash and $10 that I've so far raised for the pool for this next week. And so I'm going to go volunteer at Impacting tomorrow to pick up the food that I generally bring down to add. The $10, I'm planning to use $6 to put more gas in, and then use the $10 to start out the week. And this is not a new cycle that I've been in. I probably have car insurance to pay soon, and I don't know where that stands. I've been too focused on just simply putting in the hours for the Lord. I just don't. I got some notice so I do know that I have, from the year that I gave everything up, I know this much, I have a tax lien in Brown County, Ohio for money owed that year. I don't even know where I would call. They estimate how much you owe every year. So I got another notice from them in the email, which I can't go see because I lost all my logins when I became homeless. I can't even view. I'm sure it's an estimated amount that I owe this year as well, even though I'm homeless and don't even make any money. I foresee a situation happening where the powers that be, will probably incarcerate me or penalize me for that. For just simply, it's like you're constantly being penalized. You fall through the cracks. You're at your worst point in your life, and there's extra poop ducats that get fallen down on you. So I try not to even worry about it. I'm just like, listen, all of this, God knows exactly where I'm at. There's not really a darn thing that I can do to change any of it. And he'll make a way in the end. He'll make a way somehow. Let me read here. Somebody said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you are fully wrong in what I'm saying. I trust in God Almighty. He is the one that provides for me and directs me. But man is deceptive. Man can lie to you, but God doesn't. I don't think I misunderstood you, sir or ma'am. I feel like I hear you. I understand. I've heard that sentiment before. I don't see any guardrails in your church or your approach to operation with God, or your walk with God. I don't see any, if you're the final arbiter of everything that God wants or doesn't want, how does that not just become sort of a feel-good religion where where's the friction? Where is that iron sharpening iron? Maybe that priest needs you to counteract what they're saying, as an example. Where's the exchange of learning with people? It's like, also too, where's the humility in that walk? I'm saying it point blank. You know, if everything's just simply wherever you think God's leading you all the time, and you're not a part of any kind of broader structure. Like, look at me right now. I've been forced to reinvestigate life again based on what happened to me in a negative sense with a man of the cloth yesterday. And it's actually been a somewhat positive experience. I'm looking at things. I'm plumbing the depths of them in ways that I didn't previously. And while it's been painful, I always grow, I always learn. I don't want a path that's just easy sailing. I'm not going to ever find a church free of hypocrites, free of fallen men and women who fail me at times. That's the insight I have. And I'm looking back on my life. Look, when I was running the Jeremiah Cohen channel, I was anti-Catholic, and I was wrong. I was wrong. So just because we say that God's leading us to do this, that, or that, are we sure? Are we sure? That's why, to me, the main reason why I'm Catholic are the sacraments and the history of teachings. Because in moments of doubt, or when men fail me, like happened here, I can then open up a book about Padre Pio and say, St. Pio understands. St. Pio wouldn't have done that to me. St. Pio wrestled last night physically with demons in his cell. And what that does is it's like I've said this before, and it's really a big reason why I'm Catholic. It's not all on my shoulders. I don't have to understand everything. I don't have to. God doesn't have to lead me into every single, like, personally divined truth when it comes to the teachings. Oh, he does plenty of that in my real life. But in terms of the church that I go to, I don't have to figure out which theology is right or wrong. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I just trust that this is the church that God founded. So I don't really think that I misinterpreted you or misunderstood you. I hear this argument frequently. It comes most from people who don't want to go to a church. People who fail to gather with other believers. Who generally tend to be, there's a man on who I know from Covington who on social media is constantly just berating all churches, federal government, all this. He has nowhere he's constantly finding some fault in wherever he's at, whatever else. Brother, that's you. At a certain point, that's you. You're the common denominator now. And you're not, you want to live a biblical life. He said that to me last time. He said, I'm tempted to go start my own thing. The only thing keep holding me back, or I'm tempted, I think he said, to stop going to church at all. The only thing that holds me back is that we are called to gather in the Bible. So he's a very Bible onlyist. Brother, there's a humility. Do you know how many of the saints in the Catholic Church had to put up with superiors that held them down and back for years? Do you know the wealth of spiritual insight that comes from having to endure that and not give up, and to continue to see it through? That's faith building. Actually, to say, if God really is putting this on me, it'll happen. But many people today just want everything quick, now, easy. And that's where, too, I see when I have these experiences in my Catholic Church, I know they're for a reason. God's both showing me the dysfunction, so that if I do come to a place one day where I can have an effect or a say, that I'll have that, I'll be able to know what I'm addressing. Not in some theoretical or abstract way, but by having to have gone through the pain of enduring the dysfunction. Because that priest has no idea. He has no idea what his little comment did. I think that my church in general doesn't. I can only see, I said this yesterday, I can really only see their insistence on sending people to mental health professionals, some sort of federal government safety net so that they don't get sued later. That's the only thing I can think of to why they would be doing that. I fully admit that I'm a part of a human institution that itself is fallible. But in terms of what it teaches, and when I go to church and receive those sacraments, none of that failed, ever. And that's why I'm Catholic. The same would be true anywhere I went. Same would be true of any church you go to, sir or madam. You'll never find a church where there are not people who fail you, who are not where you would like them to be. And yet I would say this back to you in summary of an answer to your comment, is that sometimes God speaks to us through the most difficult of people. Sometimes God speaks to us through those who do not give us what we want. and who are not where we want them to be. Otherwise, how are you to build patience? Next question. When I'm talking about God, it's the same person. I'm talking about Jesus because he never lied. And the Bible is my guide, and I wisdom that I follow. It's good that the Bible's your guide, and I'm just going to address that real quickly. If you ever care to look into it, the historical church, before your view, which was Martin Luther's view, he's the first one to start to use the term sola scriptura, because he had to, in the process of him creating Lutheranism, he had to strip the church of its authority. And church magisterium obviously could not apply in his theology. And so he had to do something with that. And so now scripture alone is our guide. And the reason why we fell into folly is because men didn't. The problem is the men fell into some folly with the indulgences, but that had nothing to do with the fact that there were three aspects to the guidance of the church. And that was also tradition, things not written down, things that just simply became traditions of the church over time. Everything was not written down. And turning only that which is written down. Could nobody, let me ask you a question. Given your assumptions about scripture only, I'm sure you probably think that the word, every time it's referred to, refers to the written word, which it doesn't in the Bible. In the Bible, a lot of times when the word is being referred to, it's actually the oral traditions that preceded it. But when Moses came down from the mountain with the tablets, where was this written beforehand? Moses, I'm scripture only, brother. Where was this written down for me first as a guideline? You say you have the Spirit in you too. It's like, well, the Spirit should lead you into all truth. You should be able to discern these things, right? There's a hole in your argument is what I'm pointing out. Scripture only becomes the default for those who have rejected the church. You have to, it's the same tendency. They still want the same security blanket to keep them from error. The problem is that it was a new invention 1,500 years after the fact, far after the time that Jesus came. The men that walked early with God, the men that worked with God, that the apostles, then the apostolic fathers, then the early church fathers up until about the 8th century. These are the people we should be listening to and reading and figuring out, especially those apostolic fathers. What does the church look like? What are the cornerstones of it? None of them were rebelling against the Bishop of Rome. Do you know what the term, people say the Pope, the title Pope is terrible. Do you know what the word bishop means? Father. Apostle Paul in Corinthians refers to himself as the father of those in Christ. Peter uses the term father. At any rate, I go over this every night. Let me read a little bit more. It's Joe. Oh, no thanks, Joe. Joe, you've not been my friend. I don't want your help. You do know that, right? I forgive you, but I don't need your help, Joe. Joe, you follow Kent Hovind, who has a dinosaur park, and you're bashing the Catholic Church, saying they do their own authority and all this. Have some insight, brother. What are you doing with your life right now? You ever want to talk? I'd love to talk to you. You wouldn't like to hear what I had to say to you. How dare you? You think I'm going to fall back into... I'm not here to play it safe ever again, dude. I'm not going... I listened to you the first time. You're one of the main reasons why I was at Cedar Creek to begin with. Because I'm supposed to be pursuing the life that you pursue. That you want to fall into. I'm not trying to play it safe, Joe. And I'm not here to listen to any arguments that I know to be false already. I'm a Catholic. You're whatever you are. You don't even, last I checked, you weren't even going to church. You out of your own profession said you felt nothing out of the churches that you were going to. You weren't getting anything out of it. Guess why? Because you're in protest against the church. You have done everything but try Catholicism. And you bash me, and yet, what do you live for? What do you live for, man? I know what you live for. I knew you. Money. You live for money. Even when you said you weren't no longer living for that. Money, comfort. Why are you here? Joe? You obviously, somewhere in the background, always watch my content. Especially since I recently brought you up, without bringing you up. But now here you are. I don't want your life, Joe. I don't look at your life as an examining homeless and feeding the homeless and doing everything I can to try to help the homeless, to try to help fix. I know how to do that. And you said, I don't have time. I don't have the time. I can't go around helping every person that needs help, Adam. Be practical, basically, is the idea. I don't want your life, dude. I don't want to live your life. I don't want to. So the brand of Christianity that has yielded you is not a brand of Christianity I'm interested in, because I don't want to be a pot-smoking, beer-drinking, racist who thinks that God's blessed me with a bunch to keep for myself. I don't want to be you. These are things I never got to tell you because you, as I became Catholic, you so loved your friend Adam that you blocked them and rejected them, and you also said some horrible things before you went your own way. You have never once until now, I'm not reaching out for this branch right now, until now, lifted a finger to help your friend Adam. Move along. You had your chance. I forgive you. Move on. And there he is. He keeps going on and on. Oh, this is someone different, I guess. I don't know. I don't think it's somebody different. I think they just came on with a different name. No, brother. Okay, so that's somebody totally different. But that was real talk for you, dude. I told you what I think. And you could be in a different place in your life right now too, but this isn't the place in my comments trying to act like you want to be my friend and now step in and help me in some way when you manifested on me beforehand. You blocked me, and at a time where I did need help from people, you rejected me. And now you want to come onto my Facebook or onto my YouTube and act like you're my buddy again and help me get in this and that. Buddy, I don't want you. I don't need you. I'd rather freeze my ass winter than take help from you. Real facts. Same thing with Simon. If there's one thing, hey, I'm going to say it, shots fired. If there's one thing that I regret, it's ever having done any kind of ministry with that man. Let's do some real talk, Joe and Simon. Do you know for how many years I'd get onto our group chats behind the scenes trying to talk about the Lord or trying to bring some sense to the conversation while you both talked about nothing, laughing at me? And then you want to come on and act like you're my buddy now. Again. Wanting to talk about women, wanting to talk about drinking, wanting to talk about four-wheeling. You're not the answer to my problem. You were the parasite. You were the parasite. If I followed that path, I'm going right to hell, no matter what my damn theology about once saved, always saved would tell me. I don't want to be lukewarm. Hell no. I never got to tell you that. Like you were too cowardly. I would say it to your face today. If I met you, and I'd let you know too. You ain't my friend, buddy. You ain't my friend. You've not been there through the hard times. You never once tried to help me. You're my enemy, bro. There you are, see? Well, good for you, Joe. And your Protestant mindset blocked your friend who became homeless. You didn't help a guy who needed their car fixed when you're a mechanic and could help. A homeless couple. You've never once in the last 2 years of my journey through all this reached out to check in, to see how I'm doing, to try to help in any way. And you want to come here and throw shade at the Catholic Church when I don't see anything in your life that I want. I don't want whatever you're practicing because it hasn't yielded anything I want. Last I checked, I remember you wanting to divorce your wife for money because her disease might cause you to lose money, and you guys both talked about that's a non-negotiable. Do you know how much what I would do to just have a wife? The treasure that would be to me? Am I being in it? Like, you shouldn't have announced yourself if you don't want to talk about it. Like, I'd be happy to talk to you about it, though. I don't want what you got. Last time I heard you talk about your Protestant church, your Protestant mindset, you weren't happy in the church. I don't want that. I actually am happy, despite the fact that I just had this encounter. But at the same time, too, dude, you're not someone, just so we're clear, Joe, you don't have any credibility in my eyes. No credibility. Buddy, I wasn't unhelpable at the time. Dude, I'm out here moving mountains for the Lord. What are you doing, dude? What are you doing? I remember what you said. You think I'm stupid, dude? You think I'm dumb? You showed me that you're a little snake. Joe? You're not my friend. You ain't never been my friend. I was a friend to you. Real talk. Even when you would call me when I was doing the flea market with some deals, you had this big house. Like, I'm struggling. I'm like trying to stay out of homelessness. I'm struggling all this. You still wanted money for it. A real man, like, do you know, you live for the wrong things, dude. You live for money and things, Joe. I don't want what you got. You're not here to save me. I don't want your life. I don't want to fit in like you fit in. Because you're about to fit in and go right to the grave, brother. Remember that video you sent when you said I'm unhelpable, of your bag of weed and your 2 beers sitting in your car? You remember that at all? With no commentary at all when I'm about to go full on to the Lord? Who are you, Snake? You were literally someone who, as much as you say you have the answer, if if I reach out my hand to you right now, I'm going backwards, dude. You guys don't have any say in my life. Simon, you, nobody from that old life of mine. You either catch up to what, I don't need your help. I'm going to go through the winter. I'm going to get even stronger from this. I'm going to go exactly where I said I was going to go from the very beginning when I'm in the church and all of that. And then I'll be able to look at you and say, now what? Now what? How'd I prophesy that? I ain't coming. I'm not going back to where you are. Catch up with me, Joe. If you want my help ever, I don't need your help to get SSI or to do all this. If you ever want spiritual help so that your soul's not in peril, let me know. Brother, I don't care. You don't sound like it. I've listened to you before. I don't believe you. Come be a man and talk to me. This ain't how we talk for the first time in 2 years, but be a man. How dare you, brother? You're not even a brother. I forgive you, but aside from that, you are not someone who I look to for any kind of spiritual insight or guidance. I've already determined. I've looked at the walk of you both, and I don't want it. You're part of my disillusionment. You're part of what I don't want in life. I'd rather have nothing freezing my ass off in my van than to accept a helping hand from somebody who spit in my face when I needed it. Yeah, okay. You don't follow my child. I remember you commented a while back too. How many works does it get you to heaven? I don't know, Joe, but the Bible's very clear that you're supposed to obey God. There's not a mathematical equation, but until you read the letter of James, until you read Matthew 25, read both those passages and then get back to me with your Kent Hovind once saved, always saved doctrine. Or whatever it is you believe, dude. Get back with me on it. I'm sitting here getting lectured about the position I'm in. Don't you want to be maybe where I am? Helping the homeless every day? You want to be Christian, right, Joe? But you're here to help me get SSI and go be comfortable again and go get out of this hardship and all this. God wants you to have an easy life, Adam. Blessings from the Lord mean I live a fat, gullet, gluttonous, Western way of life. How many four-wheelers you got, dude? How many four-wheelers you got on your farm there? That is the only way to heaven. The only way to heaven is the blood of Jesus. That's right. And you know what the blood of Jesus came for, to do? Why that's dripping? Because he actually wants you to lift a damn finger, Joe. The reason why you still don't feel it. Trust me. I know you don't. You would be complaining the same things. And if I was trying to have deep conversations with you about anything, you'd be trying to take it back to some kind of mundane, boring conversation again. Sober, not sober, it doesn't matter. You're still antagonistic towards the church. It ain't my church. It's the church. You wouldn't even be able to utter the name of Jesus without that church. You wouldn't even be able to read a Bible because you wouldn't even be able to agree upon how many books are in it. You had to remove the Bibles that you read, removed books from the Bible, Joe. There's a reason you only got 66. Don't lecture me about churches and all this. Like, I don't see in you, I'm being honest, Like, hold up a mirror to yourself. I don't see in you a version of a Christian that I want to be. There's nothing about it. When I look back on it now, what I see is a Western lifestyle. Is a safe, money-driven, I've got a big home, look at me, I'm so blessed by the Lord. And yet what I don't see is a bleeding for the people that are spoken of in the Beatitudes on the Sermon on the Mount. All I ever hear from you is you're a shoe-in, it's just Jesus. You know, every heretic says that, and they denigrate works because they don't want to lift a finger. They don't want to have to do anything or bear any fruit. I don't want it. I'd rather work my salvation with fear and trembling. Okay? I'd rather try to be you know what Paul says? He says, imitate me as an imitator of Christ. What does that mean? Imitate Christ. It's not, you're not supposed to just say, how you disrespect Christ? Go read the letter of Jude. It applies to you, buddy. In that very beginning, it applies to you. You're literally once saved. That's literally once saved, always saved. Hyper grace is what they call it. You might humble yourself after all these 2 years. Come see what I do down there even. I don't need you, dude. I certainly don't need you to come save the day for me. Trust me. I don't care that's back then. What's your life different now? I don't want it, is what I keep saying. You say, I drove a semi for years to save money to buy my house while you video chatted with me living in your parents' bedroom. I earned my home. Good for you. I reject that. I don't see that you're called to that in the Gospels. Sorry. What do you say to the rich man, Joe? What do I do? You just said I built it all up. I earned it. You earned it? You earned it. You earned everything you have. Says every prideful man the world over, not giving credit to the only one that could have ever given you anything to begin with. You earned it. And I was this loser and all this. Okay, buddy. This is why it's very clear to me. I don't want you in my life. You don't have a say in my life. You never respected me then. You don't respect me now. You're still doing the same little thing. We're not on the same level. We're not equally yoked. Come catch up with me. Come live for the poor. Come live for the downtrodden, and maybe I'll hear you. Maybe then I'll hear what you have to say about Christianity. Until then, you can keep your lips shut. So, but this is why I know you don't respect me. You're on my YouTube talking to me. Still not a man. I have some things to say to you, dude, that you don't want to hear. You know I know who you are. And so, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Tell Simon the same thing. Real friends are there for friends. You have never been a real friend. When things got, I literally went into home, there was no helping me. You're a joke. Helping me? At the time, I was doing the best thing ever. I was giving up the life that, oddly enough, you advised I go into. Because it was horrific. And thank God I haven't made a bunch of money. Thank God I didn't make a bunch of money, get a house, have enough money to buy 3 or 4 cars. Thank God. God didn't allow that for me in life. Oh, he's forgiven. So just so you know, he's forgiven. But this ain't how you do it. You've been forgiven. But you don't just get to drop in. If anything, man, have some humility for once, Joe. That's you and Simon's problem. Neither one of you ever had any damn humility. And both of you all life. I don't know about you, but last I saw with him, like you guys are both lecturing me, vaping, smoking weed, drinking, all this. So you want to talk about other people's stuff like you just did. If you want to increase in your walk with the Lord, maybe you want to listen to somebody who's actually walked it rather than just talking about it. Or you feel more comfortable listening to guys who make a bunch of money like you. Are those the guys that are following the Lord? I'm following the Lord, and it ain't down the path that you want. I've learned in this walk, I'm stronger than you or him. Straight up. Both of y'all would have folded in my situation going through these last 2 years. You wouldn't have, you'd have given up the first day, Joe. You'd have gave up the first day and been like, I feel like God's calling me to do this, but like I can't be waking up in my van and I need all my creature comforts and I need all this. But I'm going to lecture Adam about once saved, always saved, and how works don't matter. Because it's the only way that my theology works, is because it doesn't call me to anything, any kind of transformation at all. I'm the center of it all. I believe in God and I did him some kind of favor. He asked you to do things. The parable of the talents. He asked you to serve people. Matthew 25. He told you to give up everything in this life for him. He's like the pearl of great price. And what'd you do? You bought a big old home, played it safe, even wanted to divorce your wife because it might cost you some money. And you both talked about it and you thought maybe you'd break your marital vows so you could save some money for yourselves. I don't want that. I don't want your Christianity. You're not someone I look up. I'm not like looking at you like, see, there it is again. Adam, it's obvious you suffer from mental illness, but I still love you. You don't love me, dude. I forgive you, like I said, but you've never been a friend of mine. You're just an old snake showing back up again. Move along, snake. You ain't gonna have a place in my life again. I forgive you. You're not gonna have a place in my life again. I don't want your help. I haven't asked for your help. I haven't reached out to you once because you're not one of my friends. Know that much. You showed me who you were then. In that comment right there, you showed me who you are again now. Never were a friend. So I reject you. I reject the premise. I reject this idea that you live the life that I should have. Buddy, until you walk a mile in my shoes, Joe, nothing you have to say about Christianity matters to me. I'm not here to be lukewarm. I'm not here to call somebody who lives for Christ every day mentally ill. You never knew me to begin with, punk. You've never known me. Unless you think gossiping about people, talking shit about them behind their back is knowing somebody. Check yourself, man. You're lucky, dude. You're lucky. You wouldn't want to see Adam. A lot of you people are very lucky that I've never gone there and I never will. Because you're one of the ones I happen to think an alternative, Joe. I'm a beautiful person. I'm actually happy with the path that I've chosen. And here it is once again, the theme of other people who say they're my friend. You're not my friend. A friend of mine would not double down on the topic that I'm talking about either. You don't know me, dude. You knew pot smoking, Adam. That smoke that passed blunts back and forth to you. What does that say about you? Oh, you're sober now. Do you ever look in the mirror, Joe, or are you always pointing at other people? Is that how you're living these days? You and Simon talking shit about Adam behind his back? Fake friend. Fake friend. Fake. Never were my friend. You talked to me. You talked to me. You hung out a lot. You think I don't remember how shit went down, brother? You think I just forget that it all kind of went out into the ether somewhere? You think I don't know who you are? It doesn't even hurt me, dude. I literally don't care what Joe thinks of me. Haven't cared for years. And I sure as hell am not going to be reaching out my hand for help from you. I'd rather be spit in the face of than to take any kind of handout from you. But you definitely proved again, you ain't no friend of mine. I don't care what, it can sound like whatever you want, Joe. You're not even man enough to come see me. You're a coward coming into my comments, calling me again mentally ill. Trying to rile things up, trying to be my friend now, 2 years after the fact. You're fake, dude. I'm not always Christ-like. I'm also, sometimes people need to be told the truth, man. You were literally a snake in my life. Straight up. If I follow your advice, that's a one-way ticket to the wrong side of town. In fact, how do I know that, Joe Hutchinson? Because I traveled it. I traveled it. I did the Caesar Creek. I was selling the records. I lived the life that you presented for a while as the one to live. And guess what it did? It was killing me. And you know what? You can think, brother, you can think anything you want of me. The beautiful thing about it all is that it doesn't have anything to do with me. That's between you and your own, that I even have real estate. You haven't had real estate in my mind for a long time. But since you're here in my comments today, daring to be as audacious as you are now, I'm happy to let you know what I think of you. Well, good for you, man. Of course, she was always going to be declining. You're in these positions now. Life humbles people. It's going to continue to humble you more. But don't spit on me. Don't come on here acting. You're not my friend. Okay? Because you still don't. Here I am walking it. I've been walking it for several years, and the only, you as a friend, supposedly, dude, you know what you represent to me? The past that I walked away from. The past of my dad. Everyone else wanted to say what I am. So you want to say who I am? My father, he's pretty. I don't have to own any of that. That's you. That's your world. Has nothing to do with me, brother. You didn't offer help. Come be a man and just talk to me. You know what I'm saying? If you ever want to talk it out in person rather than in this weird format, come be a man with a pair of cojones and tell me what you think. Tell me all about it. Offer your help, and I'll be happy to tell you what I think about you. And I summarized it. You're a snake. You showed yourself to be a snake then, as it was happening, and I see now that you're still a snake. So I'm about to hide you from my channel now. Shortly, you have anything else to say? I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to have anything to do with you. You represent a version of Adam that I don't ever want to be again. Where I listen to counsels of people like you. No. I'm very close to just, you're banned from the channel here. Do you have anything else meaningful to say? I'm not going to go, I'm not someone who needs a government handout. I'm stronger than you. I don't care if I qualify or not. I'm not looking to go a safe path. Do you know what you represent to me? It's like a devilish offer to like give in. Give in late in the game. Brother, I remember you. I remember the things you said to me. There's nothing you could say to me right now where I'm like, oh yeah, I trust Joe and his word. Absolutely not. You violated that. You violated that 2 years ago. So move along, man. I mean, I humor the fact that you could comment again in the future, but if you don't want to, I would recommend moving along, because if you keep talking to me, I saw right there when you said that you're mentally ill. It's clear to everyone. It ain't clear to everyone. It ain't clear to the sisters that I work with. It ain't clear to a lot of the volunteers that work around me that see what I do day in and day out. It's clear to you, somebody from my past who I used to sadly listen to when I was a lukewarm chump. So move along, brother. Do me that one thing. Move along and quit talking. Or I will just remove you. I don't want you. If you got anything to say to me in the future, come say it. You say one more thing here in chat, you're gone. So there's that. Amen. Thank you for that. Faith without works is dead. You see, does anybody else see that what I'm pointing out is literally like this? This is the adversary. You literally represent the adversary, Joe. And actually, I've entertained, you do know that I spiritualize many things. I do look back at my time with some of the people around me and realize that as much as they claim and beat their chests pridefully over me, that they're better, I have a good mind, or I'm the good Christian. I don't see evidence of any of it. I certainly don't have any memories of a Christianity that I wanted to pursue. In fact, it's only since I become Catholic that I've blossomed and grown, and I no longer have men like you in my ear telling me I suck, acting like you're so great when all you did was make a bunch of money and get a big house. Who cares, dude? I literally am surrounded by that. That's basic. I'm like everybody. Anybody can do that. I'm taking a different path, and thank God my testimony is going to be to something different than that. And I don't. When I was surrounded by you jackals, because that's what you were, I saw some of my worth based on what you thought of me or believed in me. The beauty of it is, oh, there it is again. You're gone now. I told you not to talk again. You did. If you ever want to talk to me again in the future, feel free to come do it in person. I'm down on Madison Avenue at the Rose Garden Home Mission every day. Be a man. If you were a friend that wanted to help me get on SSI and all that, be a big man. Come on down and say it to my face. I'm not a pushover. I'm not a punk like I used to be. So I will tell you what I think. Well, all that's true too. Oh, I'll be taking this to the Lord tonight. I also talk to priests. I also talk to... No man is an island. Joe represents, and I know he's still watching, what you represent to me is a life I no longer want to be in. That no wonder I was so... I had such a low self-esteem, felt so down about myself, is because I would listen to you, my father, Simon, everybody else who honestly, again, like I argue this, and it's not even as a prideful thing. I feel like I'm a beautiful person. I feel like I'm a net benefit to the world and I'm adding something to it these days. Didn't always. But I can sit and hear someone bash an atom that's dead even without any problem. Go ahead, bash away. You know? Thank God, as a matter of fact, you didn't stick around. Thank God many of the people, God forced many of you out, and we're forcing you out again. You don't define me. You don't have a say in my life. It's a theme. This is a constant theme. What it is I'm not allowed to see the world as I see it. Everybody, for some reason, I don't go on to anyone. I've never gone onto your Facebook or told you, you have to. I wouldn't even dare. To say what you said here tonight to someone. That's how I know that you're just not you're not my friend. Yeah, we'll do Proverbs. I'm familiar with Proverbs. That's not even like, by the way, when I said come see me in person, it ain't like I'm gonna do nothing to you. But I want you to have to feel my personal space and to observe this atom that's clearly mentally ill. If what I do day in and day out is mentally ill, cool. Cool. Everything can be brought to a head. Everything can come crashing down. I am not giving up. Ever. Do you know what giving up would be? oh, okay, I'm going to let other people define me again. I'm going to let Joe define who I am. Joe, go live your life. Define you. I don't need, it's been 2 years. If anybody were to watch what I've become today, I've blossomed ever since I lost you and many others who were constantly negatively painting me. I don't need you. I don't need you. So I don't need you. I do not need you. That's what I need. I don't need you in my life. And you're the last person that comes to mind, so you know, in terms of someone I would call for help of any kind. You're literally last on the list. I'm not even sure I wouldn't even think to do it. You lost all your credibility with me 2 years ago, as did several others. So, the only way I would ever even consider allowing you to have an ear in my life is for you to catch up. Come catch up. That's a sign too, by the way. If you only knew what that man put me through a couple years back, you might understand why I threw down my soda just now. No, actually, I hid him. He's probably still here. I removed him. He has no more, unless he creates a sock puppet account or something like that. I'm done. I'm done virtually communicating with a man who always claimed to be my friend, but has not acted like one. So, but I do remember that dude. I mean, I remember I was trying to help out a homeless couple in Batavia, Ohio when this first began. I gave them some food and they were having car trouble. And I said, let me give my buddy a call. And I messaged you. This was before you manifested on me, by the way. I say manifested, but really I think we both know. You're just a snake. You didn't have any time. Adam, I listen, that's good and all, but I don't have any time. And you're the one that tells me works are not a big deal. Brother, go check yourself. Go check yourself. No wonder you have to say that. That works don't matter. They can't matter if your approach to the Christian life is, I don't have time to help someone in need when you're so blessed, as you put it, from God with all kinds of things. Fine, he's forgiven. But he doesn't get to come in and have a say again. He came in tonight pretending like he wants to help me, calling me mentally ill, saying it's clear to anyone. Like, no, it isn't, number one. It ain't clear to everyone. And if in the end that's what's happened, if I have to go through an Orwellian 1984 experience in the end, I still will not submit to all of you who insist they know my life. We're not doing it. You can strap me to a table, stick me with syringes and all this. I'm happier than I've ever been. Without a choir of weirdos who seem obsessed with painting me in a negative light. I don't need you guys. Your baggage. So do I forgive them? Yeah, but they've not changed. I forgive them and then I say, go away. You're forgiven. I pray. These people are actually people that I pray for. I prayed for them for years now. You can't fix stupid and stubborn. If that was offensive, I mean, you're definitely stubborn. You're definitely prideful, Joe. But I keep going around in a loop here, but just so we are very clear, you're forgiven. You will never have a place in my life again to where I respect your opinion about anything, about any direction of my life, and that you still, after no matter about as far as the walk that I've taken over the last 2 years, that you say that to me tonight confirms for me that I am so happy that you are no longer in my life. And you will not be in it again. Is that forgiveness? Not the only way that you will be in my life ever again is when you ask for forgiveness and state that you were wrong and you're sorry to have been so hurtful and all these, barring all that, you're forgiven, but you don't have a place in my life. Same to you, Simon. Oh, I know you watch my stuff too at times. Same to you, dude. You know? Here's today, just so you know. In many ways, some of the people that I give credence to what they think of me today, they're people whose opinion of me matters to me. People who I've allowed to, number one, people who know me. Neither of you ever knew me. I look back on, there's a lot of things that you look back on, hindsight is 2020. I'm not going where you're going, dude. I don't want that life. So you be prideful about it. You're free to think yourself better than me. You're so mentally sound. All is well. Fine. All that's good and dandy. I don't hate it. I'm very still hurt by these people who in 2 years seem to have not changed at all. That still hold me in such a low regard. When I like who I am. I like the way that I see the world. I like that I don't believe it's just faith alone and that I actually have to do something for the Lord. I don't want your Christianity. By the way, if anyone would like to be able to give to the cat, it's fine. If God's bringing everything to like a dark place, all that's fine as well. I take everything in stride, man. I've learned to just trust. If anyone would like to give for this week's ministry, I have a link to the Cash App pool in the link here. Again, I'm starting out tomorrow with $6 cash, $10 on my card. Not even on my card. I would have to close out the pool that I'm running right now to get access to that. And then it's, as usual, another week of just sort of stepping out on faith, which I think God is clearly with Joe emerging again and this theme from the, do you see the connection? The priest brings it up. Then all of a sudden this guy from 2 years ago I've never seen comes in to say that to me too. Says he never watches my content, but for some reason he's here tonight. You see how there's these themes always? So I know I'm in Brown County was a part of this too. This is something that I'm unfortunately going to have to constantly stand up to. What it is that here's the truth, guys, and this is what'll happen to any of you too. I'm awake in a world where you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to be. Well, I forgave them long ago, but if those people from your past were to come back again, pretending to have an olive branch, hey, get some SI, it's me, Joe, blah, 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 Joe. And? What, who do you think I am? You think I'm still back there, dude? No, man. I don't need your... I'm literally at the lowest point in my life, and I don't want your olive branch. I don't want your attempt to heal. Because then, not long after, the truth came out. Because it's very easy to get the truth out of you, Joe. How you really feel about it. You're not here to help me. You're here to circle the wagons like Brown County, Ohio tried to do. Like this priest tried to do. It ain't happening. You're gonna have to, they'll have to rubber room me. And I think that the record shows that the content that I put out, although again, I don't think it really matters. I live in a world where they do what they want to do. That much I've learned. Kind of like in 1984, I feel like maybe in the end I'll be strapped down and tortured, practically. I mean, this has been a slow torture, that's for sure. You're not allowed to. Truth is built only on consensus in our world. And so Joe gets to speak because he lives the life that most people pursue. Get some money, and they feel they earned it too. I earned my life. He said it. You heard it. I did all this while you were lazy, blah, blah, blah. Well, buddy, in the future, when I'm in the church and you see that I didn't take your little mental health armchair diagnosis to heart, you probably still would say it. A lot of people are going to have to save face, though. But you so hate the church that you still would bash me. You're not my friend. You're not my friend. Never were my friend. You were always my... You want me to speak truth? Listen, now that unfortunately you've come on and you brought it up, like you were the adversary in my life. I have talked in previous videos about a couple of men that were in my life. And it's actually helpful that you came in tonight to basically prove my point. That these were people that were designed to make me more Protestant in view. And you can see that he was trying to define me in a negative light. I'm also, too, I'm up here, you're down here. I'm going to help you, Adam. Oh, we're going to help you. Brother, I'd rather freeze my ass off in winter. Honestly, dude, we're at the point, I'd rather die than take anything from you. That's about as different as Adam is today than he was when you last met him. Okay. But are you forgiven? 100%, man. But you've done nothing to show me that it's anything beyond me just having to let it go and say, I hope that this person comes to an insight. Other than that, you understand what I'm saying? Forgiveness can equal that someone comes back into your life again. But that's not a given. Forgiveness can equal that, given that they are contrite and recognize the wrongs that they have committed against you. When they're come back into your life and then cite forgiveness and all this, it's like, brother, you're forgiven. You've been forgiven. But you're not allowed back in my life. Because you're still on this old script. You're still friends with this old Adam. You're still, which that Adam even wasn't as terrible as you paint him out to be. You know? And meanwhile, I tried to tell you, as a matter of fact, plenty of times towards the end of our relationship that you were becoming extremely prideful. I would try to tell you about what I'm going through. You see, this is what happens with men. Let's talk real. Joe's the example for it. When a man gets everything that they worked for, meaning they took the American dream path, and they get it all. They get the house, they get the wife, they get the kid. He has no kids, but you know, the white picket fence, big house, gets all the toys that they need for the house and all this stuff. And then they look at someone who's complaining about demons and complaining about, you know, talking about being vocationally called and going deeper and deeper in their faith and being stripped of everything. And in the process of them being stripped of everything, I really don't know what he has to say about my work for the poor. I don't know what's the counter to that for you guys that are still trying to paint it as mental illness. Like, it's very clear you're mentally ill. It's actually not very clear that I'm mentally ill. You know, if I just did the work that I do and shut my mouth about my day-to-day life experiences, which I easily could do, I could just take every single smack in the face from the adversary in the other side and just stay silent on it. And I've actually been thinking about maybe I need to get to that point. The reason why I don't do that is because I feel like I sometimes need to talk about these things to other people that feel like they're probably going wacko in a world where everyone else does what you saw happen to me tonight happen to them over and over again. Where everyone invalidates their experience, gaslights them, makes them feel like they're less than. I'm not less than. I'm not more than. I know where I stand with the Lord, and I do it daily, trying to submit the best that I can and to serve Him as best that I can. And as best as I can comes from His grace. But what it is that, let's just speak true too, especially from where I sit today, I expose his heretical lie. That his brand of Christianity is what you live for. No. That brand of Christianity where your works don't matter, none of this matters, it's just the blood of Jesus, and it doesn't matter what you do. That is why most people just drive right past the homeless. As an example. Because they have pastors from pulpits that tell them, please be lukewarm. What does lukewarm look like? Let's break that down. Let's talk about works and faith and all this stuff. What does lukewarm look like if we're looking at it from the outside? It looks like someone who's not doing anything. It looks like somebody who says that they believe and is not doing what Christ asked them to do, which means that they don't respect the Lord. They don't respect the Lord. They don't love the Lord. They say they love the Lord. It's like mementoism, tokenism. Oh, I love the Lord. Really? Then what are you doing for Him? Well, once saved, always saved. Catholicism's a works-based salvation religion, and I don't believe in that. I live on a big house out in the country with a bunch of four-wheelers, And I lecture people that actually take that path, and I bash on them. Let's see. Oh yeah, I won't. Exactly right. There you go. Let me read this person. Senseless arguments. I mean, they got what they wanted. Yes, it has been a slow torture, for it is for all God's people the burdens we carry on the cross. We must give the burdens to Christ, to Jesus our Lord. God, take over, man. Please. Lord. Senseless arguments we shall not indulge. You're right. Do not give them the time of day. That is how the enemy gets into your life. But instead, do all things in the name of the Lord. Right again. How is it that you're, if I may comment, you're more insightful and a better friend to me than that man was? You're telling me things that are good to hear. Wise counsel. He was just bashing me. Just bashing me. And for the record, you never knew me, Joe. You never really knew me. You looked down on me. And that was felt, and I never appreciated it. And again, I still don't appreciate it today, but I also am just like, listen, man, I have a lot of I have people that show up at my lunch stand that call themselves Lucifer, that say things that the network of the organized crime network of the demonic has said for 10 years. Now, I'm getting to the point, it's like, should I just shut up about that? Should I just, my pathway through Christianity would have been a lot easier if I just bore this fruit that I do every day, and then just kept it all internal and never talked about what I go through. The reason why I talk about it, and that's why I take so much heat. If I did that, by the way, no one would say anything. Although the adversary still would find something to try to attack me on if I'm not. But again, I really do talk about these things because I talk about it to people that come to the stand who are in need of help. And I talk about it on this channel to you guys because I know that there are some of us out there that are craving to hear, that are almost dying to hear, that we're not alone in this experience that we're going through. And that these things are, the last thing I want to do is just dismiss someone just because I've never experienced some hardship that they have. And Joe, part of me is like, do I feel a little bit bad about how I responded to you tonight? Kinda, but not really. I mean, yes, on some level, I'm the type of person, we're different in that regard. You'll just think about this and still think me as like deficient. Me, I probe myself and say, did I do something wrong here? Did I respond poorly? There is no channel of you that I get to go on. There is no life of yours that I critique or care to comment on throughout my day-to-day life. I don't know why you're here again after 2 years. You did that other time too. Why are you here 2 years later in my comments pretending like you want to help me? After I've not heard from you ever during that time. That's not what friends are or do. So my advice to you, Joe, is if you ever want have my forgiveness, if you ever want any kind of reparation, you need to do some soul searching. You need to be looking in the mirror and saying, I have not been a good friend to Adam at all. I've been uncharitable towards him. I've been dismissive of his life experience because mine has been not very exciting. God bless you, brother. Just not very exciting. Like four-wheeling, drinking. See, this is me bashing at you. But it's like when I see you, and I'm sorry for that. But when I see you so negatively painting me and how you still hold me in this low regard, I suppose I'll be honest. It hurts a little. Just a little. But I'm so used to it. If there's one thing that I am used to at this point, it's rejection. Another thing that I'm used to after 10 years of this is having no one really understand. Or have the space to care. I'm always, I feel like a dog a lot of times looking in the windows of people that are living a life. Wondering why I'm a person of depth, a person who has a lot to offer. Most especially to the church, who I will not give up. I refuse. I have nowhere to go to. I have nowhere to go to other than the church. I refuse to give up. I will freeze during winters. I will turn into an icicle. I will go to jails again if I have to. I will not give up. That's my faith. That's my sola fide. There's no other option. My other option is to be friends with that, to go to that. That's my other option, is to go be gaslit again by friends and family and all of that. Nope. I get that you don't get what I'm going through, or sometimes I'm looking at you saying, I think you do know what I'm going through, and I'm not supposed to see things this way. There's that other side. It's like you have two groups in this. Either those that have no comprehension of the spiritual realm around us, and they have to put it in a box, or those that do have an awareness of the spiritual realm around us, and they serve the adversary. And again, I absolutely entertain. As a matter of fact, I don't just entertain it. Some of the things that you said to me actually in the past, Joe, specifically, and Joe's an anonymous person who doesn't matter who he is, that tell me that you're of the wrong spirit, despite the fact that you profess to follow Jesus. Because men who follow Jesus don't talk like you. They certainly don't treat people like you do. You have been too central. And that's why I'm tying it in and saying it's either ignorance or awareness that causes people to reject life experience. How about this? How about you just not be interested, not understand it, and go your own way? Why is it that people, when they hear someone giving a testimony like mine, they have to go the extra mile to dismiss it? To say it's clear to everyone. Again, I'll address it. It really does. That part doesn't hurt me. What hurts me, him saying tonight, and it's so funny that it's on the theme of this video. That's where I know that this is a coordinated attack. Because I haven't heard from this man in 2 years. Think about it. Saying the exact same thing that the priest said. This is clearly the hurdle that I'm in right now. And I just have to put, meaning, this is the test right now. And this is one of the ways that they killed the prophets today. Am I saying I'm a prophet? No, I'm just saying when God says, this is one of the ways the secular world, the secular approach towards controlling our world and getting rid of God's spirit, or attempting to, this is one of the first methods before they try to outright kill you. They come up with labels that they fit you in that have stigmas attached to them, rather than just saying, sounds like a Christian to me. If I was just crazy, if I was just mentally ill, I'd be off muttering to myself in the corner. Instead, Monday through Friday, I feed the poor and I give out rosaries and I pray for people. I guess that's mental illness. I know it's not, but, if that's what makes you sleep well at night. What I think it is that my life today especially makes people who aren't really very energetic for the Lord feel a certain way about themselves. I mean, can you imagine? Just as an unrelated example, but somewhat tentatively example, how St. Francis must have made people feel. He was referred to the same way at first. Padre Pio had to deal with this. This idea that, like, maybe he's not all there. A lot of God's saints have had this exact issue. And if we were to psychoanalyze Saint Joan of Arc and some of the greats of the church, according to the modern lens, none of them would. We'd almost surmise in the end, these people, we actually kind of have been doing this. We've been revising our history and saying that maybe they weren't very well. And we've been moving as a church in the wrong direction to sound more like that tonight, or to sound more like the priest. Thank you to Martin, by the way. Martin, you gave $50 to the Cash App just now. God bless you. I live another week. Thank you very much for that. If my friend Joe cared at all, he'd have supported what I do. See the difference? If he were a Christian who supported, let me just break it down now. If he were a Christian who supported the mission of Matthew 25, helping the needy and that, and he knew that his friends in need, he'd give in some way. He's never given once. In 2 years, this was a man who knew me in the flesh. It has only been perfect strangers, put in by God, that have helped me. I remember, never mind. I don't want to get into talking about everybody involved in all this. A lot of broken promises. A lot of people who, I have found that God had to, and that's my testimony. God had to kick a lot of these people out of my life in order for me to start to become healthy, because they were like weeds choking out my growth. Just always negative, always invested in telling me that my life wasn't happening the way it's happening. The sad thing is, that man, as well as another man who was involved, who also, at the exact same time, both of them manifested and both of them blocked me on social media, and the other one is still, and then they both, doesn't matter, unfriended me. These are people that I knew in person. One a person who I did the ministry with. If a person's a friend, they check in on you. Neither one of them were a friend. Neither one. So if they want to, this is why, bottom line is, I can't listen to them about Christianity. Either one of them. You want to, no wonder you denigrate works, because you don't display them. I congratulate you for taking care of your wife right now, who's ailing. But I mean, even the pagans do that, right? That's what the scripture says. Are you doing more? I would recommend it if you're not, Joe. I would recommend making food for the poor and taking it down and start interacting with the poor one day. Or collecting, or going out and buying. Right now, Wendy's has $1 Frosties. Go downtown, buy 50 Frosties or something, and go just hand them out for the next 30 minutes. Just riding around, giving them to people that their day would be blessed by that. You think you got a lot on your plate, or you're doing some great thing? Brother, the work is endless. The labor it's endless. Congratulations. You know? You're doing something now. World's smallest violin, though, for you. You know? Because you got a house. You have money in the bank. And you say, oh, I worked for all these things. And yet here you are bashing a man who lives only for him. That's it. And you want to call me mentally ill and call yourself a brother in Christ with me. You ain't my brother in Christ. Fake, maybe. And I'd say that to anyone who starts acting this way with me. Fake. Fake friend. Fake Christian in my life. The people that I want in my life these days, and the people that God has been putting in my life as friends, are very giving people. Giving. Like that's literally the key to it all. That's how I know that they're Christians. Not because some of them have theology that I don't get. I don't know. They're not Catholic. Some of them. That's where I do know that we know each other by our fruits. People that I didn't talk to for years. People that didn't know me, who just stepped in. Maybe one of them's like a childhood friend, actually. Who I wasn't really even a childhood friend. It was just someone who I went to school with in grade school. Who has helped me so much. She's why I have the shed that I have out here. Her and her husband, and lovely people. Both Christian. And they could fall into some of the categories that I critique, and yet at least they lift a finger more than many. Quite a lot. And then I contrast that with, or even let me contrast this, to contrast the difference between, you have to be able to distinguish, I'm glad we're talking about this. We're just going to keep going. You have to be able to distinguish between who's a friend and who's there to just suck you down and hold you down. What you saw here tonight is an example of a person who's there to hold you back, in friendship-wise. So there's a man from my old parish out in Arnheim, Ohio. Whose father was actually very famous. He's a Catholic man who has taken care, he has at different times. One day he went to the ATM, he came back, he handed me a $100 bill. This was when I first became homeless. At different times, he showed up one time to give me $50, and then I had been praying about this because I needed an oil change soon. He brought it. As he's there giving me the money, he says, "Do you need an oil change?" Sure do. So we went over to Take 5, and we started to talk about actually what I'm going through right now, which is I started to begin the total consecration to St. Joseph by Donald Calloway. Because he was saying that helps with any kind of struggle with lust or things like that. Because Joseph was a very chaste man, obviously. I'm presenting this the way I am to prove a point. Me and he have never hung out. We never sat around for hours on end talking on Skype or on Gmail chat, talking about each other's lives. But he's more of a friend to me than several men that I used to do with from the past, the latter with. And why is that? Because he's a doer and not a talker. Those two men showed themselves to not be real friends. When things hit the fan. And it's really that reason why. Barring any, had tonight this gone different, rather than you're down here, I'm up here, let's get you help, you're mentally ill, blah, blah, blah. If that had been if he had come contrite, apologizing, reflecting on how he's not been a good friend and all of that, he'd have got a much different reaction. Instead, it's the same, it's literally the voice that I had to get away from. It was the voice in my father, sadly, towards the end. It was the voice of my best friend at the time. And meanwhile, the people that take care of me today, they never say these things to me. Do you know that each one of the sisters that works at the Daughters of Mary that run the Rose Garden Home Mission, who are some of the most activated Christians I've ever met, quite frankly. They really are. I mean, I can't really think, when I think of Catholics or Christians that are living the life that we're called to live, none of them have ever, when I've shared what I go through with them, have ever even slightly suggested that I'm mentally ill. If anything, I look into their eyes and see and understand. Because anyone who starts to work for the Lord robustly goes through these things. But we don't talk about it too deeply. I don't sit there and talk to them about what I go through much. Most of what I endure on the daily, there are so many little microaggressions and so many little things where it's like, I mean, it's not that I worry about sharing it and how it might sound or look, but just to try to do the gymnastics that are required to show that this is part of a theme in how I'm attacked. Just bottom line is I spiritualize most everything. In a world where people will call that mentally ill because they're busy fleshing it all out. Everything has to be fleshed, rational. There is no connection. God's not interacting with us in this way. You're crazy, Adam, because you're not like everybody else. Do you know what? In a world where most people are on the wide road to destruction, and few are on the narrow gate to life, I'm honored to be different. That is not to say I have not led a great life. I mean, especially before I came to Christ, horrible. Horrible. And then in 20 came to Christ, the battle began, and there was a big change, and victories were being made. But it wasn't until 2024 when I just decided I'm done. And also too, where the beautiful thing is, I didn't have to remove these people. I wouldn't have removed them. Joe would have stayed in my life. Simon would have stayed in my life. My dad would have stayed in my life. God literally removed it all. He forced it to happen because I needed to be away from that in my ear, telling me, I'd say, this is my life. This is what I go through. These are my experiences. This is what you're going. This is who you are. You can never be anything but that. You're that. You're what we remember from years ago. You're only that. You're your worst moment, Adam. You're crazy. All these experiences you talk about are crazy. None of it's happening. You need medicine. You need all this. It happened at Brown County too. It's like, what exactly did I do? All I did was show up. Let the records show, if anybody ever wants to look into it. All I ever did was show up at Ohio Valley Manor, tried to check in, had a man waiting for me, literally smirking off to the side, typing away on his phone, came up, told me I couldn't come in there, told me that I couldn't visit her. I sat there and waited. He's not saying anything. The receptionist isn't saying anything. If anybody ever wanted to, I'm sure that video is destroyed by now. To see why I spent 4 months in county jail being denied a right to trial. I'd love for people to see what it was that caused that, because it was a non-event. That's why I wasn't allowed to bring him on the stand. Because then it'd be like, where's the tapes? Why was I held for 4 months on a misdemeanor without ever talking to a lawyer for the first 3.5 months? And then only then told that it was my own lawyer that recommended that I be deemed incompetent to face trial. It seemed to hinge upon, if anybody ever wants to watch the videos and get records on them, it seemed to hinge upon my complaint during the talk with the forensic psychologist that I don't trust the court system, which last I checked, you're allowed to not trust things, because of what I know of the Masonic Brotherhood being in and all throughout the judicial system. And I base that on John Salza and his testimony and much else that I know about the Masonic Brotherhood and just testimonies that I've heard over time. It seemed to hinge upon that. So the record will show. It's like there is like this. Thank God I just trust God. Because the path ahead for me is impossible to navigate without him. I can't make my way through these waters. So, God bless you, Joe. Have a good life. If you do ever want to see how crazy I am, I'd love to, if you want, I'd love to film the conversation we have and for you to say that to my face, and then I'd like to put it up and see what people have to say about what you had to say. Well, I'm going to be the one that talks about the spirit world. You know, I talk about the real experiences that people go through. Um, I could have used that greatly when it started happening to me. Probably would have saved my arms from having this happen to me. I wouldn't have the scars that I have on them today. If I had been, real talk, we've talked about this before, if I'd have been sent to a monastery instead of a psychiatric unit from day one, if I had been surrounded by people that listened to me rather than try to diagnose, it would have never, it literally would have never happened. It wouldn't have. You know, it was after going to the psychiatric unit, then I tried to kill myself because there was all kinds of demonic activity. This is back in 2017. All kinds of crazy demonic activity. Had I been put in a place which I needed at the time, to where there were priests or monks and a sanctuary attached and prayer going on in a library for me to go to, and if I wasn't being gaslit and listened to, this would have never happened, ever. Never. It was because everyone insisted that everything that I'm going through is not real. It's not happening. None of it's real. None of it's real. Even my church said it. Even my church had no space for it. This is why I think the devil's so threatened by me, if I may. And he uses men. His spirit is in other men to attack me. Because the last thing the devil wants is for anyone to reform the Catholic Church to start to return to her roots, to start to recognize, why don't we try a different method? We're so invested in these labels. By the way, I think most of us would acknowledge, like borderline a lot of these things are the result of, I'm going to say something controversial, but who cares? I say things controversial all the time. I think much of what we see is the result of a sinful life. Sometimes a very sinful life. Like, which came first, psychopathy or selfishness? Pleasure seeking, I'm the only one that matters. Like, which came first? Was it the disorder or the disordered life that came first? Now we can go further than that, but I want to see a church that first tries the spiritual answer. I want to see a Catholic Church, a Christianity that doesn't go to mental health off the bat, but instead, unfortunately, it opens themselves up to lawsuits. And I think that we have become one reason why we're losing the war, the spiritual war. And why we're going to continue to keep losing the spiritual war is because many men in the church don't actually have faith. They don't actually believe that God will provide for them the money if they are simply obedient to the mission. And so they compromise the mission, obsessed with getting enough money. And so they allow the devil to creep in. But that's the bottom line. And I think that there's a lot of other people out there too. How many other people out there who have ever had to go onto a psychiatric unit, especially for those of you who knew for a fact that you were going through something spiritual, something was deeply wrong, evil, coming at you, and you knew that? How many of you know very well that if you were sent to somewhere that was healing, meaning there were people there to talk with you, to hear you, not dismiss you, not misunderstand you, not to diagnose you, but to be open to the possibility that what you're talking about is happening? Do you think that you would have had Do you think that the reason why that medication or anything that they insist you must do afterwards, were you just trying to conform? You just throwing up your arms, saying, "Fine, I'll do what you. Fine, I'll do what you say." Or did you walk away saying, "None of that. They're right. None of that was happening to me." Would you have found it more healing? I know for an absolute fact that had the Catholic Church been Catholic, been what it is in all the writings, been what it is and the reason why I am Catholic today, if it was still that, the Catholics that I read about in the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th century, where at least if you're talking about these matters, you're not going to be labeled a lunatic. You're going to be like, wow, this might be somebody. In fact, actually, it's probably a sign, whoa, this is probably somebody who's navigating the spiritual life. But instead, it was everyone denying me my reality that caused me to do this. There was no safe place. Family. My mother never pushed it. My dad did. My mother always just sort of, God, I miss my mother quite a lot. She would listen to me. She didn't always understand what I was talking about, but she'd listen, and she wasn't trying to put me in a box, right? However, I can't say the same for everyone, even these fake friends that turned on me like snakes. My best friend at Cedar Creek, too. What did I do? I question, I look back on it. I know who they are. That's the reason why, when push comes to shove, I can just say, sadly, I was surrounded by the enemy. But I look back and I just say, like, what did I do that was so wrong with people? Basically, it's because I viewed my life spiritually, and these people didn't. They weren't having encounters with the real world around them. And so either they take the view the minority's right, the minority's wrong, or the minority is not having their experience. I so want to pilot, and this is where, again, I think the devil hates me. I so want to pilot a study where others who have had similar problems with this approach develop a program for those who would otherwise go into a psychiatric unit with a purely spiritual, very Catholic approach to how we try to handle it. And I believe with everything in me that the results would blow the medical psychiatric approach out of the water. And I think that this is why I've been so attacked, quite frankly. Do you know how different it would have been if I got on that Catholic psych ward? If I walked in and I'd heard Gregorian chant at the time, and there was like a little sister or nun waiting for me, like, "Hi, Adam, welcome, here's your bedroom. If you need to talk, or if you need some space, there's the sanctuary down here. Have you ever heard of the Rosary? You have? Do you know how much different everything would have gone?" Instead, it was a bunch of gaslighting, oversized, unempathetic orderlies behind desks, and men ready to diagnose who didn't care about me even a little bit. That's what I found. And so it's like I'm like needing more than anything love. I'm like going through like the worst thing in my life, the most confusing thing. I'm like, I don't need to talk to a doctor. I need to talk to a man or a woman who has navigated the spiritual warfare of life. If we developed a program like that, it would annihilate what the medical community is trying to offer. But it would have to be, the caveat is it would have to be done right. I mean, nobody that was there at that psychiatric unit when I went there could work at the place that I'm thinking of. Do you know who I'm thinking of? The sisters. Do you know if there was a place like that, run by the Daughters of Mary, and they're just little examples of it, to where we sent people who are going through a spiritual crisis, they'd actually come away healed. But our world doesn't want you to know that. Our world wants you to think your answer's in a pill. Not in God. God doesn't exist. You heard from God? You heard God? Pill? You say the devil's attacking you? Pill? Well, I know. You say, why would the medical field do that? It would take away their jobs. They absolutely don't want the spiritual answer to be true, because it would start to prove that it's real. I mean, if we really... The problem is you would have to vet. So what would the devil do to try to destroy it? He'd send in Manchurian candidates. What I mean by that is demoniacs that pretend like they want the spiritual Catholic answer, who are there simply to destroy what that program does. You would also find that the devil, as he always does, he would infiltrate the ranks of the program to bureaucratize it, to put more red tape, to make it less effective than it could be. And much of that would be the result of us being so married to the government and so afraid of any kind of lawsuit, rather than married to God and afraid that we might not serve one of his children. It's pathetic that what I found at Mercy Health. We keep talking about this, but it was such an injustice in the name of the Catholic Church that it needs to be corrected. In all of my days, if I'm ever in the church too, we're definitely going to be taking a look at Mercy Health. In any hospital or institution that does work in the Catholic name, we're going to start to have a look at what you're doing to people, especially on those psychiatric units, because you're hurting people. I dare say you're killing people with your response. Our response to people who are complaining about seeing demons and all these different things, why don't we humor it anyway? A lot of the exorcists are so sure, well, most of this isn't diabolical, we check mark it off and all. Are you sure you've not been hoodwinked? Are you sure that you're not just kind of playing bedfellows so that you can continue to doing the work you're doing? Because there's a lot of people, I'm one of them, that for 10 years has fallen through the cracks of your system. And you insist that you have all the answers. And I'm here to tell you, you're missing something. You're missing something big here. Like when I was in Kenton County, one of my bunkmates there was technically schizophrenic. That's the way he would put it. We would have these conversations, though, and the difference is I wasn't hearing him. I heard the things that he would talk to me about the things that he has seen over his lifetime. I hear him from a spiritual lens. I didn't hear a man. He was different. He was very different. But I wasn't hearing from him someone who's flawed or who I need to correct in some way. As a matter of fact, I was learning some things from him and saying, I can hear a little bit in his experience, little bits, that affirm for me that the reality, sadly, that I've encountered too, that there is much more to this existence in this life that you and I are sharing than meets the eye. I think that the world that you and I live in, and we're going to end here, is obsessed. If you haven't noticed, from the evening news to everything's about conformity, control, and making sure no one's too far outside the box. You gotta be in the box. And so, when you're outside of the box, when you're living a life that doesn't fit in to what's being offered, or you're disillusioned by what's being offered, something has to be done with you. Because if the powers that be, as it were, in our world, allowed that trend to continue, if they encouraged programs that affirmed people's realities, rather than dismiss them and say they're not real. You understand what I'm getting at? If they were to start programs that were affirmative, here's the problem. We would have better outcomes. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, people would be healed because rather than all the time being spent invalidating them in their experience, all the time would be spent having a space for them to have had lived the life that they're living. You'd have better outcomes. I'm not saying that in some cases that medication may not be the answer for some. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not so absolute. But I do think what it would do was it would open up the door. If they did that, it would loosen their grip of control, because suddenly now maybe this is real. Maybe there is this spiritual realm around us, which we all talk about, which many of the most exciting documentaries are done about, but officially no one gets to believe that. It's just rumored. It's in the rumor mill of the world. Like, there might be this spirit world around us. There's these demons. We're interacting with angels and God and that. But according to the news anchor, welcome to ABC Nightly News. None of that's real. They'll report on it, but there's no official take. It's not really happening. What if this was the world we're living in? That's about as good as it ever gets. There you go. You say, they say that when our children can see the other world, that is when the time is near. And I work hands-on. I have volunteered for many years with the children on the Big Island, and they are all seeing demons. It's interesting, too. Somebody said in recommendation to what... It's funny that they knew. The priest that did say that to me is an older man. He's older than me. They said, go see a younger priest. I find that interesting, in conjunction with what you just said there. it does say that in the end times, the young people will begin prophesying, and the old people will start to have dreams. Well, I mean, a lot of the older priests had been trained in an era where I think the verdict on the mental health approach has already come in, and we're in denial about it. I think it's hard for anyone to argue that in conjunction with our marriage to that discipline as a church, we have had more and more negative outcomes. And our church has become more watered down, less spiritual on the surface, spiritual during the homily, very spiritual during the Mass. But then when you actually talk about the spiritual life, to most religious, they can't handle it. I've found that over and over again. Sadly, in my walk through the Catholic Church, which I absolutely love her, I'm not leaving her. There could be 10,000 faulty men in the hierarchy, and I'm not leaving. I love the Catholic Church. I know it's the true church. Which is why it has to change. Not in a bad way. To turn from the direction of marrying the world and go back to being the church, which is a bastion from the world, a refuge from the world, not trying to woo. If I may critique the Catholic Church in anything today, and I'm not sure that everyone in it is aware that it's being done, but I know that there are many that do know this. It's trying to be everything for all people. It's trying to woo everyone. If we continue to go in that direction or allow that approach to dominate the discussions. By the way, how you doing, Joe? How am I doing with the mental illness, Joe? I sound so crazy, don't I? Maybe I should just go be lukewarm. No more works. Just a crock pot full of sausage and rice every night. Ride my four-wheelers. Look out on my big old range. Maybe I should do that. Then everybody would say I'm fine. But until we turn away from that attempt to marry the world and to woo her through all of her faults, through all the avenues that we shouldn't be going down, like all this celebrity stuff, that the church has gotten a little too married with it. It's like, if I may, like on the Hollow app, you know the Hollow app, which is a prayer app promoted by a lot of celebrity Catholics. Jonathan Rumi, Mark Wahlberg, others help promote that. Why do we need celebrities promoting it? If we just had faith, like, wouldn't that be? Isn't it faith that's our answer? Faith that God will, if we're doing the right thing, we're trying to do something, because these are, whether they want to be or not, how many women over time have had Mark Wahlberg posters on their wall? They're idols. At a minimum, you know the channel I used to run. Idols. I better get going. We've gone a long video here. At any rate, we're about to close up. Again, real quick, thank you to Martin. Martin, you have given many times over the last year, really. $50 a night. Brother,
It's people like you that keep the whole thing going.
and I appreciate you so much. And I can only imagine
You must be a servant.
of the Lord. So I don't think you'd be offended by me saying, I give thanks to the Lord for what came through you tonight. Thank you very much for continuing the ministry. If anyone out there would like
To give to the ministry,
there's a link to the Cash App in the description of this video. I've talked a lot tonight. We're going to end it.
to Joe,
God bless you, man.
but you're not
You don't have a right
to be in my ear.
ever again. Not until you come at me correct. And even then, I'll be always filtering it through what I know came before. So, how about you focus on you? Focus on you and